Ich begrüße Sie sehr herzlich.
I would like to welcome you warm-heartedly on the presentation of the International Conference Living Together in the Lindner Congress Hotel, which is the place where the conference will be carried out. This press conference is simultaneously translated, as you may have realized, and it's also transferred on the net in German and English subsequently to this conference. I would like to present the people on the podium who are available to you. This is Lord Mayor Thomas Geisel, Lord Mayor of Venlo, Antoin Scholten, This following Aziza Akhmouch. She is head of the Division of Cities, Urban Policies and Sustainable Development at OECD, and Jessica Kopf. Should you have any questions, she is head of International Affairs and Department at the Düsseldorf City Council. First, a statement of Lord Mayor Thomas Geisel. I would like to welcome you today in the Lindner Congress Hotel. As we used to say, usually if there are major events, they are well prepared, and we are presenting our program today and, so to say, those things that will happen during the second conference on living together that will start not this weekend, but the next weekend in Düsseldorf. Let me draw your attention to the fact it all goes back to the fact that Düsseldorf is member of the Living Together network, Vivre Ensemble, and it also goes back to a city council resolution that made it possible for us to organize this conference. This conference is a gathering of 37 Lord Mayors, mayors, vice mayors, and high representatives from 37 cities, from 25 countries, journalists, 6 journalists from 6 countries, meaning we have 37 delegations from 25 countries. And over the 3 days, they will discuss subjects, challenges that mega police are confronted with nowadays. Let me also say, Friday night we will start with a reception in the Jan Wellem Hall, where all delegations are welcomed and where the heads of delegation will sign the Golden Book, and then there will be a dinner reception in a building where you have the best view of Düsseldorf, the so-called Drei-Scheiben-Haus, one of the highest houses in Düsseldorf, on the 23rd floor, and I think that on this terrace we will enjoy the view over the Rhine. And on that very day there will be 5 workshops under different headlines. The first one about communicative cities, here about urban planning and development. Under the title of Healthy Cities, we will deal with subjects like health, of course, but also ecology and sustainability. And in the third model, under the title Resilient Cities, we will address security issues and risk defense. And when it comes to connective cities, it's about participation, about citizens' commitment in times of digitization. And in the last module, under inclusive cities, we will deal with integration, social cohesion in diverse communities in the metropolis, as they will gather on that conference as well. And I'm delighted that we have many partners supporting us in organizing this conference, the most important one being the Living Together Network, the observatory. It was founded in Montreal, so it's the Observatoire Vivre Ensemble. And beyond that, we have the OECD. Aziza is representing OECD. She traveled to Düsseldorf. We have the state secretary from the foreign ministry, then Düsseldorf marketing, having supported us in preparing Eurocities and Wirtschaftswoche as our media partners, then the network Strong Cities, and UNESCO International Coalition of Inclusive and Sustainable Cities. So these are the partners that supported us in preparing this conference, and we would also like to express our gratitude to two companies, enterprises in Düsseldorf, who stand for the international endeavors in our city. That's the trade fair, the so-called Messe, and the airport, the Flughafen. Basis of the discussion is an online survey that we've carried out with 2,000 participants from the cities taking part in the conference, and we've tried to find out what the subjects are that are close to their hearts, what are the issues that are important for them, that create challenges. I do not want to disclose everything because it's going to be presented subsequently to the conference, but I can already tell you that the subjects that are in the focus of attention in Düsseldorf are reasonable organic development between the city center and the agglomeration, and also the development of city quarters. Mobility is important, efficient public transport, reinforcing the public transport, as well as affordable living spaces like in all metropolis. And on our conference, these subjects will be dealt with. And on the last day of the conference, there will be the so-called Düsseldorf Declaration. It will be presented and signed by the heads of delegation, who will have contributed it in the course of the conference, and there will also be an exhibition where the results of the conference and the contents of the workshops will be presented. And later on, as from 1st September, you may already be aware of that, we'll have the celebration of democracy in the so-called Ehrenhof Museum in Düsseldorf, and some of the conference partners have already declared that they will stay longer to participate in the celebration of democracy, which is carried out due to the anniversary of 2019, 100 years Republic, 80 years start of the Republic, then the war, and some other dates. And this celebration of democracy has an international appeal because some international delegations will take part in them. So on 30th of August up to 1st of September, Düsseldorf is even more international than it is usually the case. I can claim that the world is visiting Düsseldorf. We are hosting the world in order to address the major subjects of megapolis in the entire world. I think there will be a very positive echo in the universe of the media, and this is why I wanted to tell you what we're going to do during that conference. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Scholten will now present the contribution of Venlo.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Lord Mayor Geisel for that presentation. I think that my history that I'm going to tell on the 31st of August just fits perfectly to the subject of our conference, sustainability oriented towards the human being and towards the future. And my story will treat another way of thinking in order to solve problems we face in our cities, and we have to deal in a different way with them. And first of all, it is about the approach that we can be of use. We can do good as human beings, and that we create development, we solve problems, and we can earn money as well. And the way of thinking of Venlo is based on the credo to credo principle. And this means that we have put theory into practice. We implemented the theory, and I will illustrate this on the 31st of August with two examples. For example, the primary school in Venlo and our very, very famous administrative office building. So why our citizens are so proud of this building, and what about the employees who work there? How do they feel about that? We earn money with quality, with health, and I will illustrate that on the basis of our business case. And what is very interesting is that it's not a political issue. Political parties on the right-wing side, we said, okay, we were told that it is very, very good and that it's not about money. 45 million is a lot of money, but it was paid for and it was worthwhile paying for. We do not only sustainably reduce, not only be sustainable, but we will encourage a circle, an economic circle, concentrating on the human being. And this is why Venlo does not only take on the responsibility, but strengthens as well the economic situation. We will be more attractive for our citizens and for companies as well. And I would like to use this platform to tell you our story and to communicate my responsibility as a Lord Mayor and to learn from each other as well. So thank you very much. This is something very interesting that made us curious. And now we would like to listen to Aziza Akhmouch. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Apologies, I will be doing my intervention in English, having not studied German at all, anywhere, and that's apologies for that. Very happy to be here. I would like to start by thanking Mayor Geisel for the invitation, but also for the great opportunity to partner in the organization of this event that will take place at the end of August. We're very delighted as OECD to be on board and to lead in particular a specific session and workshop on inclusion and how to foster inclusive cities. I have three messages to convey here, and then I look forward to some of the questions. I think the first one is very much the why we are engaged in this event. As an organization, you know, the OECD, that is primarily aiming at advising governments on how to design and implement better policies for better lives. So give you a bit of background on what we see in this event that is absolutely timely and relevant for many advanced and emerging economies. A second message that is more about inequalities per se and inclusion, because this is the specific focus that we'll be looking at in the stream of the conference that we'll be working. And then maybe a third and final message on why we think mayors are really the future in terms of addressing some of these preeminent challenges. On the first one, as I said, we are very delighted to partner as part of what we call the OECD Champion Mayors Initiative for Inclusive Growth. This is a network that we set up about 3 years ago that is gathering the 60 mayors from across the globe, and Mayor Geisel from Düsseldorf joined the network about 6 months ago. Mayors who have put the fight against inequalities at the very core of their administration and at the very core of their agenda. So we're very delighted to have the opportunity to organize that inclusion session, in particular workshop, where we'll be hearing from very concrete examples of 4 different cities in terms of tackling inequalities. We'll be hearing in terms of energy affordability from Arnhem, for example. We'll be hearing about refugees and migrants integration from the case of Montreal. We'll be hearing about housing, mandatory inclusionary housing, as they call it in the case of New York, and we'll be hearing about youth integration in the case of Vienna. And those are very good stories, I think, that can really be replicated in other contexts. So we see very much this opportunity of peer-to-peer discussion between cities as a nice platform to bridge the gaps that we know in terms of inclusion and livability. Now, a few words on inequalities that has, in many OECD countries, become a really hot potato. We know that inequalities have overall fallen over the past 30 years, but we also know that inequalities have increased within countries, and in particular within cities. And the bigger the city, the bigger the inequalities. And it's not only about inequalities in terms of revenues, it's also inequalities in terms of well-being at large and access to jobs, access to public services, health, education. We have produced evidence at the OECD where we see, for example, that in cities like London or Baltimore, you can have a 20-year expectancy life difference depending on your zip code. We know that in New York, for example, you can access 44 jobs within 30 minutes using public transportation, while in cities like Riverside in California, it's only one job. So we know how those public services are really either helping mitigate some of the divides for citizens or widening some of these divides. And that's really why we think that inclusion and inequalities is a really important issue, and why we think that some of the policies that are implemented in Düsseldorf, in particular in terms of public transportation, in terms of housing affordability, and in terms of schooling are really spot on, together with the items that the conference will cover in terms of addressing those pressures that governments at local level are facing. And why mayors? And that brings me to the final part of my intervention. If there is no inclusion, there can be no economic growth, there can be no environmental transition, there can be no social cohesion. And cities are the places where most people